Welcome back to the Coach Cameron podcast. This is episode 561. Welcome to the crazy show. We're going to talk about Rebecca Quinn. She comes out as transgender. That's a touchy topic that I have to be careful on, because if I say the wrong thing, I will be banned, fired from everything I know, and probably murdered. So I'm going to get into that because I like to be on the edge. Utah, Real Salt Lake, $500 million price tag. Can you buy it? Arizona, Rising, can you buy it? Do it. And why are MLS clubs getting paid for U.S. talent going to Europe, but not the youth teams that played a part in it? That's a big problem. We're going to talk about that. That in lies our big problem with pay to play. It can be fixed with legitimate pay to play. We'll talk all about this on episode 561. Welcome to the madness. So first up, we're going to talk about Rebecca Quinn. So reported today, will soccer still hold space for Rebecca Quinn now that they're out? Okay. I don't fully understand all of this, so let's just get into it. On Wednesday night, soccer star Rebecca Quinn announced to the world via Instagram that they are transgender. Quinn plays midfield for the NWSL, the Reign, the Canadian women's national team, and is an Olympic bronze medalist. They are the first out transgender player on either team. While Quinn's announcement is a proud moment that will likely pave the way for future generations to self-identify, an ugly question now looms: will soccer accept them as they are? I'm confused. It keeps referencing two. Is she two people? And I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to understand. So multiple, and for the ones that understand all the acronyms or not, the binary, non-binary, them, they, all those, I don't understand them. And I get all you haters out there probably, you should spend time and study. You know what? You know how hard school was for me? It was flipping insanity for me. I suffered for years upon years because I couldn't understand anything. I had so many learning disabilities. It was so horrific going through the educational system that I went through. It's no joke. Problem. And I cover in this dang podcast. Most of you guys know, the active listeners, I was choking to death coming out of my mother's womb with the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck. That causes a lot of brain damage that haunts you for the rest of your life. That happened to me. I was choking to death. Doctor spun me out of that dang umbilical cord and saved my life, and life moves on. But so I say that because now we're adding more problems in my life by it's like I'm back in school. I got to figure out all these things. I don't know what it is. So now I think they is multiple. So let's read on to fully understand what the heck's going on. Thanks to the tireless efforts of its players, the NWSL of today is largely supportive of its lesbian and bisexual members, but many fans haven't forgotten about the division in the league just 5 years ago between Christine and queer players. But the league and the Canadian national team are now confronted with how to navigate the strict adherence to the gender binary within the sports community, and whether or not that leaves a spot on the teams for Quinn. It will fall at the feet of the NWSL commissioner, Lisa Baird, who will decide whether all the rainbow gear the league pumps each June is just for show, or if the league will keep a stellar transgender player on the roster. Okay. Quinn was chosen to represent their native country on the Canadian national team for the now postponed 2020 Olympics. However, the International Olympic Committee is notoriously clueless as how to treat athletes who are trans or gender nonconforming. All right. That's a mean statement because all of this is new. I'm not understanding a lot of this. there's the Olympic Committee, their adherence to drug testing and the things they have to do to make sure things are staying fair. And that's before for adding the they, the him, the her, the non-binary, binary, and I guess they, the two of them. I mean, if there's two of her or him or they, dang it, if there's two of they, does that mean they play with 12 on the field? So they have to play a player short. I'm sorry, they play with 11, but really we'll see 10 because that's two. So does she have to cover two positions? That's how stupid this thing can get. I mean, it's so confusing, and I guess I'm whatever phobic, or I'm not. I don't understand, and that is my problem trying to deal with this. And it's okay not to understand, but I have a lot of questions, and let's get through this so we can ask some questions. And I apologize for the ones on my podcast right now. You might not learn anything on this podcast today as far as in this portion because I don't understand. So maybe you can comment and help me understand without destroying me for even talking about it, because this is touchy. I could, if I say the wrong thing, I'm done. But I like being on the edge, so that's how I'm going to roll. All right, so it goes on. The most recent and painful example of this is Caster Semenya, a South African woman track star who has been penalized by the governing body of her sport because of a genetic condition in which her body produces more testosterone than the standard female range, according to the New York Times. And I remember I actually saw that documentary. So she was like destroyed everyone, and she was is a female, and I guess they found the male part that wasn't it was like not fully developed, and it didn't fully process. So I think she was a hermaphrodite, but no fault of her own. But they stripped her of everything, which I thought that was BS. Because in my opinion, in that situation, she's genetically gifted more so than competing with her others, and I don't think in that situation you just can't. I think going to fairness. I mean, this is how it's all confused. I don't know what to think. I mean, but she got stripped, but she didn't do anything to compromise what she's doing. But I don't know. That's a goofy situation as well, and that was unfortunate because she wasn't cheating or anything like that. The South African women's track star who has been penalized the government body of her sport because of a genetic condition which her body produces more testosterone than the standard female range. According to the New York Times, as Jezebel previously reported, the ruling preventing Semenya from competing, which tied women's eligibility to their testosterone levels, was held once again on Tuesday, and it will likely become a standard practice. That's just where we're at. There's so many cheaters in sports, so many. I mean, if you just watch Lance Armstrong's documentary, I mean, they all cheat. And they can cheat to the point where they know they'll get caught, but years down the road. And that's the problem, trying to keep things fair. And now we're adding this into the mix. And I'm not a fan at all. I do not support transgender men transitioning to a female and competing in like MMA. Because I seen video of that. And that's destructive, and that is just not appropriate. I mean, could kill someone. It's ridiculous how males could transition, and not even fully transition the way we're headed, and take over sports on the women's side. Are we not protecting women ever anymore? We're destroying women. It's sad. And I'm not comparing it to this situation. Scared to death about talking about this, as I wing it on every episode. The Times speculated that the IOC would adopt a similar policy for all women competitors as dictated by the IAAF for the 2020 Olympics, but Pink News reported that the IOC has yet to offer updated policy for trans and gender nonconforming athletes. The policy currently in place could greatly hinder Quinn's shot at returning to the Olympics in 2021, according to the Pink News. A consensus statement published in 2015 allows trans women to compete in female categories under a series of conditions, which include the athlete publicly declare that their gender identity is female, with a declaration unable to change for a minimum of 4 years. There are also specific requirements as how much testosterone can be present in the body in order to be cleared to compete. In Quinn's public announcement of their trans identity, they didn't make mention of testosterone or giving any glimpse into their journey towards coming out. And it's important to note that they are not obliged to do so. There could very well be a future in which Quinn and other trans athletes are not grilled about every aspect of their gender before being allowed to play sport they've been excelling at since childhood, but sports governing bodies would have to pull themselves into a century for something like that to happen. We'll see if the shift comes quickly enough for Quinn. I don't understand. So we don't know how she's transitioning. The thing is, how I understand it, what I went through, you can't do drugs. Okay? Whether you're transitioning or not, you can't do them and compete fairly. You just can't do it. So I don't fully understand where this story's going. I'm going to seek to try to understand it more because I feel for anyone that's suffering about how they feel about themselves and all that. I struggle with a lot of mental problems, and I'm saying it's a mental problem. It has to be a lot of anxiety build up to even announce or do anything like that. I mean, we all battle forms of depression and anxiety, and we're all trying to survive this world. And, that's just we're just trying to survive. And I want to be kind to others, and I want to do things that, help the world. And I get my podcast is pretty negative. And I'm trying to fix that because I don't like being negative. And the goal is not to be negative. And then this story came out. I'm like, oh, man, I want to be kind to Rebecca Quinn. And I want to understand. That is it. But the problem I have, the one thing I do have a problem with Rebecca, on her Instagram post, so on Rebecca's Instagram post, this is where I have a big problem. It's these statements. So she says in her Instagram, coming out is hard and kind of BS. I know for me, it's something I'll be doing over again for the rest of my life as I live and as an open trans person with the people I love the most for many years. I didn't always wonder when I'd come out publicly. Instagram is a weird space. I wanted to encapsulate the feelings I had towards my trans identity in one post, but that's really not why anyone is on here, including myself. So instead, I want to be visible to queer folks who don't see people like them on their feed. I know it saved my life years ago. I want to challenge cis folks. If you don't know what cis means, I don't. That's probably you. Okay, I guess I'm cis. To be better allies. It's a process, and I know it won't be perfect, but I can encourage you to start. Then it's something. So that's a nice statement. And now I know what cis is. I'm a cis, I guess. I need to look it up more. But she puts these numbers down of something to think about. 1, put your pronouns in your bio. No, I will not. 2, listen to other trans NB voices. And she lists some, to name a few, listen to their voices. I'm willing to do that. 3, practice using gender-neutral pronouns with friends in a mirror. no, that's weird. I don't even like looking at myself in the mirror, except I used to look in the mirror and be like, just as a joke, just seeing how it made me feel. You are wonderful. You are special. You can be great. I don't know. Yeah, I've done weird stuff like that. And I also went and looked in the mirror, or went in the bathrooms with looking at the mirror, saying Bloody Mary 3 times. Yeah. And then in the house by myself when I was a kid. That was nuts. So she goes on to say 4. Oh, I probably should scroll down so you guys can see what's going on here. 4, vote. Okay. Thanks. I guess I'll vote now. 5, start to catch yourself making assumptions about people, public, bathrooms, any spaces. What? I never really think about it, but if it'd probably be for I have 2 daughters and a wife. I'd be nervous for them to go into the bathroom and a transgender male that converted female went in there, or anyone faking to be in the bathroom. I'm always worried about my daughters, and I want my daughters to always be safe, because there's sickos out there that are looking to commit crime and stuff like that, and I don't want them to have an advantage. I think you should go to the bathroom according to how you present yourself. Then you're good to go. But you should, I don't know. All this is crazy. You know, it's hard to get through. And what's the end? Is there an end? I don't know. Moving on. Real Salt Lake reports $500 million price tag on Real Salt Lake, Utah soccer holdings. Want to buy Utah Soccer? Sports Business Daily reports the holdings are worth at least $500 million. Utah Soccer includes Real Salt Lake, Real Monarchs, Utah Royals FC, and Rio Tinto Stadium. Among other soccer-related entities, RSL Price's benchmark is around $325 million, according to the Sports Business Daily. Forbes recently valued RSL compared to the industry average and other Utah sports teams. RSL $235 million, MSL $313 million, Jazz $1.5 billion, NFL $2.86 billion. So is RSL going to sell just so that's all encompassing $500 million for everything? I don't think they're going to get that. I think there's going to be offered just for the MLS team, and will he sell it that way? The article goes on. RSL owner Del Loy Hansen acquired full ownership of RSL in October 2013 after 3+ years as a minority investor. He decided to put his team on the market in August after numerous reports accused him of a history of racist comments and behaviors. Lies! They're lies because they don't put the facts in there. Where's the facts? You don't just say things. If you're going to say that, he said the N-word, put it down. You get those days later after they just search and search and search, and we heard from someone that knows someone that he said something bad. In addition to misconduct, it's a moment of sadness. Hansen told the Radio from Hell team on X96 that he owns after the RSL team joined national sports boycotts about the shooting of Jacob Blake. It's like someone stabbed you and you're trying to figure out a way to pull the knife out and move forward. That's what it feels like. The disrespect is profound to me personally. So there it is. He's a racist. How does that make him a racist? Because he thinks differently than you? Aren't we in the world that we're thinking differently? We identify differently. We have all these pronouns and all these things that we're dealing with. But it's only if you think how I want you to think. Isn't that the world we live in right now? It's how I want you to feel. And you're not allowed to feel unless it's a feeling I approve. And it goes back to Rebecca Quinn. I did it right. I was going to say she, they um, wants you to, do these things. And I don't work that way. I like freedom. Freedom to be a they, he, him, hers, non-binary, whatever. Be what you want to be. But don't make me be what you want me to be as far as the way I get to think or talk. We cannot be there. I mean, then we'll cease to be a human race because we're not allowed to think critically. Because when you think critically and have a conversation and you discuss things that you may have, contrary points of view or whatever it is, the whole point of that, to have an argument, is you're going to offend. That's you're going to be offended. I'm offended all the time, but that's okay. You can be offended, but that's how we get through things. But if you can't offend, you can't, have an opportunity to offend, you can't reflect, you can't do so many things, the ability to think is gone. I don't know if any of that made sense. But we move on. A former, and this, I love this stuff. So a former RSL intern told 2 News he was fired by Hansen after he told RSL franchise management about racial comments that were directed at him 6 years ago when he worked for the team. Of course. The intern said he spoke with 2 News after another employee recently came forward with similar allegations. Now, they're all coming after the fact. It's just they didn't like his first statement. I understand his first statement. But we cannot be in a world where we're just going to destroy people because they did not approve of players not playing in a sport that he's funding, regardless of how rich he is. Major League Soccer is currently investigating Hansen in the light of the allegations. Chief Business Officer Andy Carroll was put on leave of absence on September 1st after allegations of sexism and workplace misconduct. An investigation into Carroll is also underway, according to Sports Business Daily. And I called it. I said it. I said this a while ago when he first got in trouble for speaking his truth. And as soon as the mob came after him, I'm like, not only is he's going to be destroyed, even after he gets out of this, they won't stop attacking him. Regardless of apologies or anything he says, he's going to be destroyed forever and ever and ever. And anyone associated, like his poor business partners. Andy Carroll, sorry, buddy. Founding executive of Real Salt Lake is serving an interim president of Utah Soccer after majority owner Hansen announced his leave of absence. John Campbell will take a temporary leave from his role as president of Vivint Arena to have exclusive management responsibility and control of operation for the organization and report to MLS Commissioner Don Garber on MLS matters during the ownership transition period, a press release stated. Now, will he not get the $500 million purchase they're looking for everything and just sell piece by piece? In a tweet from David James, I was told it was worth $350 million to $400 million after the academy was up and running, but that doesn't account for supply and demand. Sports teams aren't available very often, and if there are multiple bidders, whatever. Okay, David James, understand this. It's for everything. It's for everything. Not just one. It's for the women's team, the men's team. It's everything. But I think they're going to have to sell them separately. I don't think they're going to get that. They might, but I want it in Arizona so bad. So far, a few people have expressed interest in buying Utah Soccer. Sports Business Daily reports that Larry H. Miller, Sports and Entertainment, which owns the Utah Jazz and the Salt Lake Bees, and Ryan Smith, CEO and co-founder of Qualtrics, have expressed interest. Houston, Texas Stars defensive and J.J. Watts tweeted interest in August 3rd. Shut up. Yeah, good job. Good luck, J.J. Watts. Now, J.J. could buy, like, just the women's team. They can do that. And then Toronto FC's Josie Altidore said, I'm involved in a group that is ready to purchase. Time for change. All right. Okay. Let's go, Josie. Nice goal yesterday, by the way. You just kicked and hoping it went in. And that guy's a monster. I don't know what kind of steroids he's on, but if he ever transitioned to the female side, flip, man. That would, and that's what I'm talking about. He could. You never know who's going to transition or become transgender or whatever. Josie would destroy the women's circuit. So, yeah, that could be a thing. All right, so what I really wanted to talk about, if I can get there, I got to transition to my next slide. Sorry about that. So the what's coming up now is why are MLS clubs getting paid for U.S. talent going to Europe, but not the youth teams that played a part in their development? That in lies the problem with youth soccer in America. If you can make money by developing youth in your own academy in America and get paid for transfer fees and all that like it's done in the rest of the world, that would change U.S. soccer. Because then it wouldn't be about pay to play, because you know what everyone do? They would go to the inner cities and they would start developing those kids, and then they know, and bad as this sounds, they would sell. They would organize selling of these players, and then they would transfer. You imagine LeBron James fell in love with soccer because some academy, because they know they're going to make, oh my word. If athletes were converted to soccer in America and played, they would take over the world. We have the best athletes in the world are in America. They're just not in soccer. I even said this, the second and third tier athlete, when you're talking about football. So in football, at Phoenix College, our junior college program, there's a difference between looking at a junior college team and a Division I NCAA. There's a difference. There's super athlete, and then there's athlete. The second and third tier athlete in football, the ones that will not, they might go University D1, but won't go NFL. Those athletes, if they played soccer, would take over soccer because U.S. doesn't produce that many athletes. There's not enough of them. That's why I chose soccer. I was smart. I was extremely fast. I was athletic. I was top 10 in Arizona in the 400-meter race. Top 10 in the 100-meter. I was a track star in my little world. And I'm talking 5A, the highest level that we had. But I wasn't fast enough to compete I couldn't do the next jump. So I was probably a second or third tier athlete. A third tier athlete to go NFL. I ran a 4.38 40 to give you guys an idea how fast I was. But in soccer, I was the fastest. And that's why I chose that sport. That's all you need to do in soccer. If you got the second and third tier athlete and moved them on, they would take over the world. We would do very well. But that requires payment. It's a different kind of pay to play. In 2016, when Weston McKennie signed his first professional contract with the Bundesliga, side Schalke 04, the move was celebrated in just about every corner of the U.S. except for Dallas and MLS headquarters in New York. McKennie had been in the youth system of FC Dallas for 7 years. As such, FCD did plenty to prepare McKennie for the professional ranks. And yet, when McKennie signed with the Royal Blues, what did the FC Dallas get for all its hard work? Not a cent. Even though FIFA regulations on the status and transfers of players, RSTP, said FCD should have received around $250,000. That's a game changer, ladies and gentlemen, but you can't do it because in America, you have a problem, and it's called child labor, and that's kind of in lies our problem. The reason why FCD was left empty-handed was that for decades, the U.S. Soccer Federation, for a variety of reasons, opted not to adhere to the RSTP. When MLS was getting players from the college ranks or on free transfers from abroad, this didn't matter so much. But now that MLS was investing tens of millions of dollars every year in youth academies, it either wanted to see something in return for its investment or scare off foreign clubs from poaching their youth players and keep said prospects for themselves, which makes sense because we have Barcelona here, the Barcelona Academy, the real Barcelona Academy, not the fake Barcelona Academy, which it was so funny. So in Arizona, we have a ton of clubs here, and one club was called Barcelona. They're like, oh, we're affiliated with Barcelona. They weren't. And then the real Barcelona Academy came into Casa Grande, took over what Real Salt Lake left, and identified, hey, why is there other Barcelonas here? We're the only Barcelona. And, they had to get rid of it right away. So, so many cheaters in the world, compromising us all, using fake names, or real names that don't belong to them. So we go on, and it says, so in April of 2019, MLS announced that it would begin adhering to RSTP. In practical terms, the announcement meant that MLS teams would be compensated for player development costs when an academy product signed their first pro contract with a foreign club, which would trigger what is called in FIFA parlance a payment of training compensation. It was a gift that could hypothetically keep on giving. If an MLS developed player was ever transferred to a team in a different country, MLS and the team that developed the player could recoup as much as 5% of the transfer fee, called a solidarity payment. It would also pay foreign clubs such fees for incoming transfers. It would be akin to a Japanese baseball team reimbursement the New York Yankees for player development costs if a Yankees farmhand decided to sign with the Japanese team instead of going to the major leagues. The Japanese team would also have to pay their players' youth teams for such costs as well. The announcement sparked vision of MLS teams not only hanging on to more of their academy products, but potentially recouping tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars if the players moved elsewhere. And this makes a lot of sense why the MLS academies are everywhere now. And MLS focus on it. And Real Salt Lake, by the way, which might become Arizona, RSL is the biggest youth soccer organization in Arizona, as far as a soccer club. Why? They know what's coming. The more kids that play under their umbrella, the more return they'll get if one of those tens of thousands of players they're under their umbrella make it anywhere. And they will own the rights to it. So they are trying to get all their territories locked down. And that's making it like the Wild Wild West. But that explains why the MLS Academy is doing what they're doing. They're all like, oh, we're going to create this Super League for all you people. No, they want control. Because you're playing under their academy, they get that control. Does that mean if you're not an MLS Academy player, but you're in the Academy League, like Del Sol is in the MLS Academy. If one of those players makes it to the MLS, but was developed by SC Del Sol for 10 years or whatever, who gets the money? The MLS Academy League? Or does the individual club? That's another fight down the road, I'm sure. There was also an MLS decision would pave the way for non-MLS clubs throughout the country, be they in the USL or just local clubs, to obtain their FIFA-mandated fees as well if players that developed hit it big. Oh, I guess that answers our question. In a country where the pay-to-play system, whereby parents are footing a chunk of the club's expenses, is still king, a couple of $100,000 could easily ease the financial burden on some clubs and families. The decision has had some positive impact. MLS has indeed been able to retain more of its youth players, at least the ones they want. But what has ensued is largely a two-tier system in the United States that operates outside of the MLS, still struggle to be compensated. Nothing has changed for us, said Jerome de Boughton, a former MLS executive and currently the chairman of youth club Rush Soccer. There's been no concrete materialization of MLS decision. So it hasn't. And Rush is the largest soccer club in the United States. I believe so. With they got clubs everywhere. So they're definitely hoping, based on the power numbers, that one of them make it. And it's a 6-figure deal and 7-figure deal and 6-figure deal for the Rush. But everyone's hoping for that superstar, and it could happen. As for why it took so long for the MLS to take part in the RSTP, that is down largely to the stance of the U.S. Soccer Federation. Previously, the USSF prohibited U.S.-based teams from collecting or paying such fees. Among the reasons cited, which have shifted over time, was fear that adherence to RSTP would trigger antitrust lawsuits due to the restraint of trade or violate child labor laws, which that's what we discussed earlier. The USSF also replied on some arcane legal rules to avoid taking part in the RSTP. Back in 1997, during a court case involving MLS and MLS Players Association, the two sides agreed that MLS wouldn't charge a transfer fee for out-of-contract players. The USSF agreed to the same, yet feared that paying youth clubs a fee when a player signs their first pro contract would violate the agreement. But after watching several of its academy products, most notably McKinney, leaving for nothing due to the fact that they were not contracted with the MLS club, the attitude in league circles evolved. If the youth players was going to sign elsewhere, MLS wanted to capture the fees to which FIFA said it was entitled. The thinking of the USSF changed as well following the stakeholders meeting in 2015 that included MLS and the MLSPA. The USSF opted to take an official neutral stance on the issue instead of openly opposing it. So what's transpired since MLS announcement 16 months ago? According to Demetrius, MLS EVP of Player Development and Competition, only a handful of transfers of the MLS players have triggered a payment of training compensation or solidarity payments. Demetrius declined to say how much money MLS teams have recouped or which deals were involved, but he said it's less than $1 million in total, but that'll change over time, I'm sure. That number doesn't include DC United, recent transfer of midfielder Chris Durkin to the Belgian side to St. Truden for reportedly $1.1 million. This, in case the mandated 5% amounts to as much as $55,000 was baked into the fee for Durkin, but he added that DC United technically was eligible for the payment. That because MLS decided that only those MLS academies that don't charge players a fee in order to play can receive training compensation or solidarity payments. DC United is one of those that still charge a fee. Minnesota United, which recently revamped its academy structure, is the other. And that's one thing I do like about some of the academies, that if you make the first team, it's free. That makes sense to me, because that's a good thing, because they believe in you. They believe you have the opportunity, and that's the way it should be. We put RSTP adherences into place actually to make sure that they were retaining the players that they wanted. He said the reason why you haven't seen that many examples of it, because we've been doing a really good job retaining our talent. Our focus isn't to just go out and get money. Our focus is to retain the talent that we think will be successful in MLS now. That's not true. I know, well, I guess Barcelona's different. So I know Barcelona, they're going to move you. Get you Europe or whatever. They want to move you, sell you right away. It is about money, like most businesses. He added, I expected that the number of deals would go up. As we continue to develop more and more talent, there will be instances where those players will gather more and more attention globally. The USSF neutral stance is driven by the fact that agents and the MLS Players Association are generally opposed to the RSTP. The thinking being that it creates an additional tax on transfer that takes money out of the player's pocket. The MLSPA strongly supports youth development, but we do not believe that pricing the burden solely on players to fund it is a sensible approach. The MLSPA said back when MLS announced it would follow the RSTP. A levy on the professional clubs and the federation that is unrelated to individual player transaction would spread that burden across the industry, which would be far better approach to funding the development. I like it. Whether the player gets less, I'm not concerned about that right now. I'm concerned about the number of talented players we're getting from this country. And we have talent. We just don't get them. And a lot of it has to do with you're not given an incentive to find them, because a lot of the players can't afford or refuse to pay that kind of money to play in this system that we currently have, which is a joke. And we keep repeating the same problems of the joke. Scrolling down, while MLS clubs have had success with the RSTP, non-MLS youth clubs are still struggling for training compensation and solidarity payments. Del Sol, you better be careful. All you jumping with MLS, they're going to take your money. While the money involved might not seem like a lot in the context of player fees, it can be sustained these clubs by covering vital operation costs or increase availability of scholarships, which is important. When Durkin's transfer was finalized earlier in the year, one of the youth clubs he played for, the Richmond Kickers Youth Club, didn't get a cut of the fee estimated to be in the $10,000 to $20,000 range. Reached by telephone, the Kickers executive director, Leigh Kalisha, said the club would look into trying to get reimbursement, but the USSF neutrality means that the federation will merely pass along requests to FIFA for a club to get paid rather than be an advocate for a youth club. So what happens is FIFA actually distributes, and they're not going to spend too much time trying to figure things out. I mean, when Americans were coming up, I remember it was a university that was contacted over a transfer and fee, and they couldn't take it, and it got me thinking at the junior college, I would take it. And if I have one player in the Bundesliga right now, and if he gets a first division contract, I'm calling because he was 1 year with me. I'm taking that money. Sakai Iohara, tear it up, my friend. This is a long, well-written article. And by the way, this is the first time I'm reading it. And I'm done. I'm tired. So I'm going to end this crazy podcast that I'm on. And in hopes that you'll join me again and again for the content I give you. And I apologize to Rebecca if I offended you or anyone for that matter. My job isn't to offend. My job is just to give my flipping opinion. That's it. And allow our country to exist with the freedom to be able to have conversation. Oh, the good news is I don't have money. I'm a nobody. So usually I don't attack people for being nobodies. But you never know. I will see you guys tomorrow on episode 562. Have a great day, guys. See ya.